Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Wherever you are in the world today, I hope that you and your family are doing great. Hope that life is treating you well. And most importantly, my friends, I hope that you and your loved ones are in good health. Once again, welcome to the Common Sense channel. On this channel, we get to discuss those things that people have thought about, that people know, but don't often have the time to discuss. These, my friends, are the things we talk about here on the Common Sense channel. So, once again, welcome to the Common Sense channel. For today's talk, we are going to discuss on the topic constitutional crisis. What is constitutional crisis? So that's what we're going to explore today. So welcome to our talk for today's video, constitutional crisis. I know many of you, since the presidency of Donald Trump, you've heard many times on the media, in social media, across this country, the phrase constitutional crisis. So from the Common Sense channel, we're going to give our little explanation from our own insight of what the term or phrase means. So today, we're going to start by looking at history. One of the things that happen in society, one of the reality of life, one of the aspect of life that if you forget, if you fail to learn from, you'll always repeat is what we call history. That's why history is very, very relevant in our day-to-day activities. In 1861, there was a man named Abraham Lincoln. And Abraham Lincoln happened to be the president during the advent of the Civil War. And it was Abraham Lincoln that set the stage or started the formation of what today most people would consider as constitutional crisis. It was during Abraham Lincoln's time that many opposition leaders, true, in this country were imprisoned without charge. Today, that would be considered, if we're to look at today's standard, what Abraham Lincoln did during the Civil War, arresting all these opposition leaders, people that he felt was not in support of what he was trying to do to bring the Union together. Anyone that voiced discontent or ill feeling towards his administration or ill feeling towards what he was trying to do or against the campaign to stop the Confederation from seceding from the country, anyone that spoke against that or spoke against his administration or his policies were considered enemy. Today, based on today's standard, that, my friend, will be considered a constitutional a conflict or crisis. So the term constitutional crisis, for most people who don't understand, would think it's new, but it's not new. Another event happened in the early 2000s between President Bush, former President Bush, and Al Gore from the Democrat Party. And the court had to step in. That, my friend, is constitutional crisis. Anything that has to do with, or any situation or event or crisis that has to do with the three branches of government, disagreeing or agreeing or just having disagreement on certain aspect of how the government should be run will be considered or is a constitutional crisis. So you understand? But today, when they use the term, they'll use it as in the form of a dictatorship. So that kind of relates to the video that I did on democracy and dictatorship. So I want to be able to kind of show you where the idea of this video came from. Because when I did that video on democracy and dictatorship, I said that democracy does not exist without the fundamentals of a dictatorship. So anyone coming from that viewpoint of a constitutional crisis viewpoint, or looking at that situation from a constitutional crisis, would beg the notion that I'm trying to express, or that I was trying to express in that video. Because constitutional crisis emanates or originates from what I said existed, a dictatorship. A constitutional crisis only emanate from a dictatorship, not from a democracy, from a dictatorship. So those people that are arguing, that are discussing or thinking or going to the court to adjudicate a case that involves a constitutional crisis, they are agreeing with the video that I did on democracy and the interconnectedness between dictatorship and democracy. So, for example, today we see when something happens in this country, for instance, recently, the issue in California where Donald Trump sending the National Guard to bring about what he called stability, or to prevent the loss of life and property. And then the governor in the state of California says, you don't have that right to walk into our state and do this. It should be our right to do that. That, from someone looking at it from a viewpoint of a dictatorship, would consider that a constitutional crisis, because the state of California has their own constitution. The state of California has their own Supreme Court. So are all states. So if you're looking at it from that viewpoint, that would be considered a constitutional crisis. Now, in our system of government, which I don't think America is a democracy. I never thought it was. I even gotten into trouble when I was in high school on this subject, that I argue over and over, and people like said, oh, why are you arguing about this stuff? You wasn't even born here. You was born in Africa. And I said, yes, I was born in Africa, but that don't mean I'm dumb. You know, I'm always been curious anyway. And I'm a lover of history and a student of history. So I like to debate things and I like to argue. And they said, well, you wasn't born here anyway. How you don't know anything about America? And I told them, I said, look, I don't need to be born here to know anything about America. The thing is, you just have to ask questions. That's one example. But if you're walking around and you think America is a democracy, that's going to be strange to you. It's going to be like a crisis to you. Because in your head, you think America is a democracy. Let me tell you, you don't need a democracy to have a court system. Understand? The court system is not a new system. The court system been around way before the idea of democracy was born. You understand? So as an African, we see the world not just as an African, as an immigrant. We see the world different than people who were born here. When you were born here, you've never been exposed to any system of government. All you've known your entire life is this illusion. That's all you know. And if that's all you were taught in school, and you were not taught the right understanding of what this country is, you will be thinking the contrary. America has never been a democracy, never. And that's why Abraham Lincoln was able to incarcerate his opponent in 1861. Check it. Go read in the history. You see it's there. That history was not told to you. You know, the one that was told to you is the one that says America is a democracy. None of the founding father ever espoused any of that democracy crap. None. They never put that in their writing, because how would they even discuss democracy when the country had people from Africa that were slaves? The country had slaves. How would the founding father talk about democracy when women didn't even have a right to even decide whether they want to go to college, or more or less even vote or have voice in anything that was happening in this country? So you get the concept. The only thing that resonated the most in this country by most of the founding fathers, all of them, were constitutional republic. And that's the reason why they say we the people. When they use the term we the people, they were not talking about democracy. And that term we the people can be interpreted in so many ways. You understand? By someone with a clear vision, with a clear mind, can interpret what the phrase mean, we the people. You understand? So yeah, that I'm doing this video because I did the video on why I think democracy doesn't exist and what exists is dictatorship. You understand? And that democracy is just a fine idea. And it's the idea that's presented to you. But it doesn't, it's like an illusion is there, but it doesn't exist. You know what I mean? You know what an illusion is? You know, like someone can show you an image, the image you're looking at it, but that's not the image you're seeing. It's a different image. But the image is, the person is telling you, see it, this is it. But you are saying, no, but that's not what I'm seeing. But you have to be able to open your mind to see it. So constitutional and crisis will only exist in a dictatorship. And you don't need the court system in a democracy. I grew up in a country where I've seen dictatorship. And I also grew up in a country where I see local governance, like the chieftaincy, the paramount chief, the local chief. And I've seen how they're able to adjudicate cases. And they don't even have a court, but they have a court. They have a way of adjudicating cases. They have a way of settling dispute in a community. And they have a way that they can imprison someone that even did something outside of the norm of that community or that society, and still control the inner making of that community without a legal, like how we have a legal system, like you have the local courts and you have the appellate courts and all these little court system, and then you have the Supreme Court. So democracy don't have to have that. You don't have to have that system for it to be considered democracy. You understand? Any form of any system that has some form of a stability, that knows how to adjudicate cases, that bring about peace and harmony in our community is also a functioning community without a legal framework of a court like how we have in like the so-called civilized world. So that's what I'm trying to say. But in a constitutional crisis, like we've been hearing a lot, every little thing that happened in the three branches, member of any each of those branches will run to the court. So if you truly believe in a democracy or a democratic, I don't even like to use the word democratic, but in a democracy, you wouldn't use the court much, you know? And that's why I think the issue of constitutional crisis keep rising up. Because if you are constantly going to the court to adjudicate or solve all of your problems that you can solve, then you are pinning the court against each other. You are making the Supreme Court or your local court system you're overworking your court system, and you are making them to be political. That's what I'm trying to say. You're making them to take side when they're not supposed to do so. They are not supposed to be partial. They're supposed to be impartial. But because you're constantly bringing cases to them, I'm talking about the branch of government. That would be the legislative branch and the executive branch. These two branches are supposed to find a way to solve problems and let the court be the last resort. But if every now and then they have to run to the court with cases, then they're making the court to take side. And that's why you see sometimes when the executive branch does something and the legislative branch job is to rectify some of the things that the executive branch will be doing or are doing, and correcting these things, making new laws, making new policies to correct some of the things. So if the executive branch comes out with policies that does not align with what the legislative branch agree with, they can go in and rectify it. They can go in and fix it. That's their job. They don't need to go to the court to have something called constitutional crisis. The court system is main function, in my view now, anyone can debate this, is to litigate cases that involves the abuse of civil rights. I don't like using civil rights, but citizens' rights. That's what the court, that's the sole purpose of the court. Even in local community that practice chieftaincy or law and order, not every situation that involves the communities goes to their part that they have to adjudicate. No, some cases are local and they're dealt with locally. In some cases, they have to go to the Supreme Court or the higher court of the land. But when you see politicians sending lawyers all the time to go to the Supreme Court to go talk about cases when they can fix it, the legislative branch can fix those problems. They don't need to be running to the court all the time. For instance, immigration laws in this country. You don't need to run to the court to put a blockade on the executive branch. You don't. That's example of a constitutional crisis right there. You don't. You don't need a political party to send lawyers to go to the Supreme Court or the local or state court or the appellate court or the magistrate court to put an injunction on on policies implemented by the executive branch, that stuff should be legislated. Because now what you're doing is you're putting the Supreme Court judges in a tight space. You're putting them in a space where they would have no choice but to take side. That's not how this court system should work. And you see this a lot since the presidency of Donald Trump. And one thing they don't really know is Donald Trump doesn't even believe America is a democracy. I'm telling you, ask him, he'll tell you. Anyone that watches this video, you know Donald Trump doesn't believe America is a democracy. He doesn't. He doesn't. That would be the last thing he ever says out of his mouth. Ever. But what he believes in, that America is a constitutional republic. That's the only reason why he kind of like he want to do some stuff like Abraham Lincoln did, but he don't want to do it because he knows like the court is gonna step in. But my argument is, if you're true for those people out there that believe that America is a democracy, that been fooling our kids all these years for you, if you believe that 100%, don't go to the court. Leave the court out. Go to your senator. Go to your House of Representatives. Go to them and tell them, let them do their job. Let them legislate. As far as immigration is concerned, that stuff could have been done a long time. You wouldn't even need the court. You wouldn't even have a situation you have today that some people in the media sit there and say it's constitutional crisis. It's not. Constitutional crisis only happens between the branches. For instance, like what Abraham Lincoln did. So the president goes to the house and say, everyone in this house, you are adjourned, go home. You don't need to be here. All of you fired. Constitutional crisis right there. But you don't have constitutional crisis when the government, the executive branch decide to shut down the border. That's not constitutional crisis. And you know that it's part of the right of the executive branch to protect the nation from external and internal forces. You know, that's why I'm talking about this. I'm talking about this because I feel like there are these people out there that misconstrue everything. Like they make things look like for some reason, sometimes I think they think people are just stupid. Like this thing, people are so dumb. But again, I can see why, because a lot of people, you're built in this illusion, in this matrix, to believe something that is not what it is. And now when you see the executive branch doing something on the contrary, you think is wrong. But the executive branch, they are at the right place. They are right within the framework of the law. It's just the people that are they're playing with your mind so you can't see. And because you don't really know how these three branches, how they work and how they function, and their different various roles that they play, constitutional crisis only arises when these branches are fighting each other. You cannot have constitutional crisis when there's a majority of people that went and voted for executive branch. The executive branch itself is not put in power by the minority. And before, in this country now, I don't know about other countries, But in this country, it's always an election. And during the election, you'll see the person come out there, whoever is running, many a times. I don't care much about politicians anyway, because they're all liars. But anyway, they'll tell you what they're going to do. They'll tell you how they're going to do it. You know it. They'll tell you. All you need to do your research, do your study. Study their platform, their policies, whatever it said they're selling. And when they get in, based on majority vote or the electoral college, that entire electoral college is not even democratic. So that's another discussion right there. So you get it? So like, you just need to start to see what this country is. It's not in a bad way. This is just educational purpose. Just trying to educate you, because the lies, lies, when you tell lies so many times, and then after 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 100 years, 200 years, it becomes true, and then everybody start to believe that. But my discussion for today's video is on constitutional crisis. So anytime you're out there and you hear the media, the one that sell the whole thing to you, because whoever the politicians is or political party in this country, they package the lies real good and they give it to them, and they're the one that propagate it. And they're the ones, sometimes even distort the history books, because some of the things they talk about in there on the platform, it's not even in the history books. But because you don't read for yourself, some of you are just hooked on their platform, you're just listening to a bunch of whatever. So constitutional crisis from the Common Sense channel, again, happens between the branches of government. It's not your local stuff that happened. Now, if somebody is infringing on my rights as a citizen, I have the right to take them to the judicial system. I can start from my local judicial system. If they pass a ruling that's not pleasing to me, then I can take it to another level. But my case is not going to be constitutional crisis. You understand? My rights can get to a point where it can be, but it has to impact the masses for it to be closer to a constitutional crisis. For instance, if one day I wake up and for some reason the laws are turned around, and I went to work and they say, you're fired because you're black. You're a black man. You're fired. We don't want you. That becomes a constitutional crisis. You know why? Because within the Constitution lies my rights. You understand? To work. Not to be discriminated against on the basis of my color, not just the color of my skin, my belief system, my religion. You understand? So all of these things, that would be the only instant where you'll find out. And that goes for any race of people in this country. You'll have a situation that involves constitutional crisis, or would be termed as constitutional crisis. But to be honest with you, and based on what I've studied and know, constitutional crisis only happens within the branches of government. You understand? Like when Abraham Lincoln was locking up all these opposition leaders, that, my friend, will be considered a constitutional crisis. When I say opposition, that's from the other party now, because all politics is local. So whether he's locking up a councilman, but the councilman happened to be from the opposition, that's a crisis right there. That involves constitution. That would involve the Constitution. So that's what it means. When you hear constitutional crisis, that's what it means. It don't mean like somebody shut down the border because people are crossing in, like the people crossing from the south into southern border into America, and then somebody say, oh yeah, because they're coming in, oh, he's infringing on their rights. So that's constitutional crisis. Or some states is on fire, and the federal government decide, the federal executive branch of the government, federal government, decide to step in to bring about stability and the loss of life. That's not constitutional crisis. That's him doing his job, and it's right within the frame of his authority or her authority, whatever is in whatever party is in the executive branch at that time. You understand? So when you are constantly using the court on silly stuff, on things that don't make no sense, and you're within the government, all you're doing is exhausting the court system. You're allowing the court system to be like a referee, or you're allowing the court system to exhaust their power. You're not validating the court system. Because some people can look at a court and say, oh, there's a bunch of politicians over there. You know what the result is going to be. You know that it's all Republican leaning. Oh, it's all Democrat leaning. And they're not supposed to be seen as that. Anyone, when you talk of the Supreme Court, people should be afraid, like, oh yes, they have the final say. Or the higher court in a state, or a municipality, or a community, or a state. When you think of the higher court, you should validate them. You shouldn't say, oh, I'm not going. We know what the result is going to be. But constitutional crisis, if it continues to happen, if it's not legislated, it's gonna create that kind of situation where the court is just constantly just exhausted. They're used, and people start to look at them different. So that's the issue. The issue of constitutional crisis only arises when the branch of government, executive, legislative, and judiciary, especially the legislative branch, when they refuse to do their job, which is to make law. These are lawmakers. They're policy makers, not even lawmakers, because out of policy comes laws. If they are not doing the job, then, my friends, you're going to be led to that. That's why you see sometimes they say the executive branch is behaving like a monarchy or a dictatorship. You understand? Because all policies are dictatorial. Yeah, policies are nothing but dictating to you. It's telling you what to do. It's what policies are. And the executive branch, they run on policies. In fact, that's their platform. They're not coming there to play by your book. No, they're coming there to tell you what they've ran on during the campaign, what they campaign on, what got them there in the first place. They're not there to run on your own policies. They are there to run on their own policies and their own platform. So whatever it is that they're going to be doing to you for the 4 years is going to be based on their platform, on their policies platform, and not on your term So how do you call that? So that's dictatorship. So forget about the democracy. The only thing that can check a dictatorship or a so-called aka democracy, you understand, is a judicial system doing their job, but doing their job without stress. When every now and then, every little thing, you cannot go to the judicial system, the court system, and tell them that whatever the executive branch is doing is wrong when they know what the executive branch is doing is right within the framework of the scope of practice. They're not going to side with you because they're going to go right into the Constitution. And then the Constitution is going to say A, B, C, D is the responsibility of the executive branch. But now if the executive branch infringe on your rights, and it's in the Constitution that they are not above the law, if you go to the judicial system, the court system now, there is no way, my friends, the executive branch will win, because the infringement of your rights is enshrined in the Constitution, and no one is above the law. No one can infringe on those rights. That's why I remember a long time ago, they used to have service, Sunday school. They used to pray in high school, in schools across this country. Yeah, religious people used to do that in schools. They used to have Bible studies and all that stuff. Prayer before the kids go to classes. And somebody woke up one day and said, you know what? What if I'm not this? What if I don't believe in your religion or believe in God? Do I have to have my kids be subjected to that? And that became a constitutional crisis. Understand? That's a typical example of a constitutional crisis. Not like the ones we see today. Every now and then they run to the court. Every now and then they run to the court. If you believe in democracy, don't run to the court. Wait for 4 years. Wait for 4 years. And in that 4 years, make your case. Make your case. But if you say you believe in democracy, that people have the same, people, right? You believe in people have the same. Then wait. Make your case to the people. Tell them why the other person shouldn't be there. But don't exhaust the court. Leave the court alone. That's the essence of this video. Leave the court system alone. Let people like myself don't look at the court funny and say, no, I don't have no faith in that court. I know where they're going to lean. Let them do their job. Give them leverage. You understand? All that constitutional crisis thing they be talking about, let's forget about these things. And if you truly believe in democracy, and if you truly believe, honestly believe that America is a democracy, like they told you in whatever study you've done, without you questioning, asking what it is. Because until you get out of that concept, you are not going to understand why the executive branch does what it do. You understand? Until you get out of that illusion. But once you understand that America is a constitutional republic, then you know everything that governs this country is the law. That's the reason why no politician can protect anyone's laws in this rights. Citizen rights. I'm not going to say civil rights. Citizen rights. No politician can protect your citizen rights. No. What protect your citizen rights is the court. And that's why if someone say you don't have the right to own and bear arms, you don't even need to waste your time. The court already gave you the right. It's in the Second Amendment. So that's a constitutional thing. You can take them all the way to the Supreme Court. Guess what? You will win. because it's in the Constitution. But anything that's not in there, you're wasting your time. The court is not going to side with you. And what it's going to do for those people that believe America is a democracy, it's going to make them upset. That's all it's going to do, make you upset. You're going to get mad. You're going to be grumpy because you don't understand the basic functioning of this country, which is everything is run by the court. You're going to be giving your money to people who are going to eat your money, and they're still not going to win. So the best you can do, if you still live in the illusion of America being a democracy, just wait 4 years. You know, I'm an independent. Yeah. Not Republican, I'm not Democrat, none of that stuff. So I'm in the middle. So that's how I see it. I look at both of them as nothing. They don't, what do they do for you? They come, they lie to you. You know? So I see it different. I look at it different. That's the perspective I bring on my channel. I don't come here thinking, oh, siding with this one, siding with that one. You're just boxing yourself. By you being independent, you're separating yourself from all the noise. You know, and I feel sorry for us sometimes, independent people, because we get the worst of the deal. You know, because the other ones that are partisan, they go there, most of them don't even know how this country runs. You know, they just go and vote. You know, just like the shepherd leading you, and then maybe you can be going off the cliff. You're just going to go off the cliff. You're not going, by the time you figure out you're already down the cliff, you're on life. You know, and I've always asked the Creator to open the minds of people so they can start to think. You know, once you start thinking for yourself, you will see all the BS coming from these people. And once they notice that you're thinking for yourself, they're not going to mess with you. If that politician running for local office, state office, federal office, if they know they have a highly educated or highly informed population, they are not going to just sell anything to you. They're not going to hustle you easily. And that's all I pray for, more and more people in this country and across the globe to be independent minded. And even if that politician going to sell you something, they're going to think twice. They are going to be 200%. If they do get that job, they're going to work their tail off to make sure that you are pleased, so that way next time you vote for them. So again, constitutional crisis only happens within the branch of government. And if one of them, the legislative branch that makes policies and laws, if they're not doing the job, if they're playing games, they're going to be sending you to the court, and you're going to be exhausting those poor people. You're going to turn them into Republican and Democrat, and that's not where they want to be. Their job is to interpret the law and interpret it without fear or favor. Their job is to be impartial. You understand? So as I've always said in my video, I don't want this video to be too long, but this is a very important topic, because a lot of people out there don't know how this thing happened, especially our topic for today, constitutional crisis. So as I've always said in all of my videos, I will say again, the greatest thing that can ever happen to anyone is not the day you're born, not the day you had your first car, the day you graduated from high school, college, the day you got your first degree, the day you had your first child, none of that stuff. The greatest thing that can happen to anyone, my friends, is the day you discover yourself. Because from that day on, everything, absolutely everything, will start to make sense to you, including understanding what the true nature of constitutional crisis is. And as I said it in my video today, it only happened amongst the branches of government, not like what we're seeing lately between the Democrat and the Republican fighting over power and misleading the masses. That's what they're doing. At the end of the day, nothing is done. So if you're a legislature out there, a legislator out there, part of the legislative branch, do your job. Go out there and change policies. If the executive branch is doing stuff you know is wrong, fix it. It's your job. The executive branch is only doing exactly what is on paper, or maybe exactly what is in the Constitution. If they try to get out of that, out of track, it's your job to bring them back. Do your job, and you wouldn't have constitutional crisis. Again, I want to thank everyone that watches my video. I want to thank everyone that support my channel. I want to thank all those that have been consistent subscriber to my channel. I love you, I honor you, and I thank you. If you have questions, comment, don't hesitate to post them here. This is all educational. That's what it is. We're all learning. Independent-minded people see the world different. And as an immigrant, I look at the world different. I see it different. I have a two-world viewpoint or viewpoint. You understand? So have a blessed day, and I hope that you and your loved ones are doing great. And I hope that life is treating you well in spite of all the trash that are happening in our beautiful world. Have a blessed day. Thank you.